When I turned the key and heard children laughing inside a house that was supposed to be empty, my stomach dropped before my purse even hit the floor. The sound came through the door like it belonged there, bright, careless, familiar in a way that didn't make sense. A cartoon jingle played softly somewhere down the hall. Something smelled warm, like toast and cheap vanilla candles. For a brief second, I wondered if I'd come to the wrong address. But I knew that pale blue door. I'd picked the color myself, standing in the paint aisle 8 years earlier, arguing with a man who would later become my ex-husband. I stood frozen in the entryway, keys still dangling from my fingers, my overnight bag slumping against my knee. The house breathed around me, alive. Not the quiet, hollow kind of alive I'd left it in, but occupied. Used. Claimed. Mom. A small voice called from somewhere inside. My heart slammed once hard. That voice didn't belong here. It didn't belong to any neighbor's child who might have wandered in by mistake. I knew that voice. I'd heard it over video calls and holiday visits. I'd sent birthday cards with money tucked inside for that voice. It was my nephew. I took one step forward, then another, each footfall heavier than the last. The hardwood floors creaked the same way they always had. That sound felt like betrayal too, like the house recognized me but had chosen someone else anyway. My sister's laugh floated in from the kitchen, low and tired and unmistakable. I told you, don't run inside with socks on, she said. You're going to slip. I leaned my hand against the wall to steady myself. The paint felt cool. Real. Everything was real, and that somehow made it worse. I hadn't seen my sister in almost a year, and I hadn't given her a key to my house. Before all of this, before the laughter in the wrong place, before the knot in my chest, my life had been quiet in a way I'd learned to appreciate. I was 54, divorced, and living alone in a modest townhouse about 40 minutes away from the old family neighborhood. My days were predictable. Mornings with black coffee and the news playing low, afternoons at the insurance office where I'd worked for nearly 20 years, evenings spent reading or walking the same loop around my block. I wasn't lonely. Not exactly. I had friends I lunched with once a week, a grown daughter who called every Sunday, and a routine that felt earned. After years of chaos, raising kids, managing a marriage that drained me more than it filled me, I'd finally reached a season where nothing demanded too much. The second house, the one I was standing in now, was a leftover piece of a life I no longer lived. My ex-husband and I had bought it as an investment property, back when we still used words like we and our future. After the divorce, the house ended up with me. Not because I wanted it, but because I was the one who'd put most of the money down. For years, I rented it out to strangers. People came and went. I kept it clean, functional, distant. But the last tenant had moved out 3 months ago, and I'd been dragging my feet about finding another. Something about this house always made me tired. Maybe it was the memories pressed into the walls, or maybe it was just the responsibility of owning something no one ever thanked you for. Still, bills don't wait for emotions. So when my friend Marlene mentioned she knew a young couple looking to rent, I finally decided to take a weekend trip to the house. I planned to clean, take photos, maybe stay the night to remind myself what shape it was really in. I didn't tell my family. I didn't think I needed to. My sister, Carla, lived across town with her 3 kids in a small apartment. She'd had a rough few years, divorce, job instability, the constant weight of doing everything alone. We talked occasionally, mostly surface-level check-ins. I sent money when I could. I listened when she needed to vent. But I kept boundaries, the way you do when love has taught you caution. Carla had always had a way of leaning just a little too hard. Growing up, she was the younger one, the dramatic one, the one everyone worried about. I was the responsible sister, the one who didn't need watching, the one who could handle it. That dynamic never really goes away. It just puts on adult clothes. When I pulled into the driveway that afternoon, I noticed the trash bins were out. I assumed the previous tenant had forgotten them. The porch light was off, but there were fingerprints on the door. Fresh ones. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe the real estate agent had stopped by. Maybe I was overthinking. I unlocked the door anyway. And now here I was, standing in a house that smelled like someone else's dinner, listening to my sister scold her child for running. I stepped into the kitchen. Carla stood at the stove, spatula in hand, her hair pulled back in the same messy bun she'd worn since her 20s. She looked thinner, more tired, but otherwise comfortable, like she belonged. She turned when she sensed me, and her face went through something that wasn't quite surprise and wasn't quite guilt. "Oh," she said softly, "you're here." 3 children stared at me from the small dining table. My niece and nephews. Wide-eyed. Quiet now. I couldn't speak at first. My mouth opened, then closed. Words crowded my throat and refused to line up properly. "What are you doing in my house?" I finally asked. Carla set the spatula down slowly, like any sudden movement might shatter something fragile between us. "We needed a place," she said. "Just for a little while." The room felt too small, too tight. I noticed things all at once. The backpacks by the door, the family photos taped to the fridge, the way my old curtains had been replaced with brighter ones. "How long?" I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. I looked at the children, then back at her. My sister, my blood, standing in a space that had never been offered, never been discussed, never been agreed upon. And suddenly, the laughter I'd heard earlier echoed in my head, not as joy, but as something taken, something assumed, something that was never meant to be hers. I swallowed hard, my chest aching with questions I wasn't ready to ask. Because I already knew, this wasn't a visit. This was a line crossed.